Welcome to the Marketing Remix, presented by Red Door Interactive. I'm Reed Carr, CEO of Red Door Interactive. Our show is a senior level marketer's resource for navigating our ever-evolving landscape. In each episode, in about 20 minutes, experts from different marketing disciplines representing different buyer touchpoints tackle one important marketing topic. Then, what do you need to know, and how does it affect the buyer? Welcome to this episode of the Marketing Remix. We're going to talk about content versus content marketing. In marketing today, the term content encompasses anything in any medium. So what exactly is content marketing? While content presents itself in various forms, whether it be product content, sales content, user-generated content, and so on, content marketing concerns itself with a strategic solution to a strategic problem. It's about delivering a consistent customer experience, i.e. content, across the buyer's journey and using content to specifically support top-of-funnel marketing activities, i.e. content marketing. In this episode, we'll discuss content, its relationship to other marketing tactics, and how it benefits the marketer and the consumer. So we're here with Mia Mendola, Senior Social Media Specialist, and Will Price, Manager of Content Strategy here at Red Door. Thanks for joining, guys.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, excited about this one because it's such a big topic. And it comes up all the time. People talking about content marketing, and it's clear that people don't necessarily have a true definition or one that's easily accessible for them as far as what is content marketing specifically. So let's talk about the branded part of it first. What is branded content versus non-branded content?
Sure. No, great question. Essentially, branded content is anything that a brand produces that includes logos, brand messaging, anything consistent with brand voice, aimed at solving certain solutions for a consumer or a user, depending on who we're talking to, and delivering those messages at key points within their decision phase, and usually pointing back to a product, something specific on a brand website, and very much keeping in line with overall brand goals, messaging, etc. tone.
So we already talked about that content lives at all phases of the funnel. Does content marketing live in the same way at all phases of the funnel?
I mean, that's exactly how I would view it. I think that people traditionally think of content marketing living in the consideration set. And I think Will even said that when you asked him the question about branded content. When a user is considering a product or a service, et cetera, that's really where content comes into shine. But we should think of content marketing as something that lives in all stages of the funnel so that we can help put ourselves in the mindset, no matter what channel that content is to live on, that it's going to best serve that set of the funnel.
Yeah, I think just to compound on that a little bit, I've been reading a lot lately about content marketing on the whole. I mean, obviously just keeping up with industry trends and insights and all that good stuff. We're going to get to a point where there's not going to be such a thing as content marketing. And I know from a job security standpoint, that's kind of scary for me. But really what it means is the fact that it's going to go from content marketing to marketing, because content's become this sort of not nebulous creature, but a very tactical creature in our lives that touches us at every stage of the journey, whether that's consideration, awareness, conversion, advocacy. So content marketing lives on in much the same way because it does affect us throughout our day-to-day, regardless of sort of where we're interacting with a brand, because it's just become a part of our lives at this point.
Yeah, that always seemed weird to me because content it could be anything, anywhere in a lot of cases. So the fact that you're talking about that dropping off just that word, it is marketing, I think that's part of it. It felt like the diversity of channels that we've had, and then that we had to kind of think of it that way first and then start moving those pieces within the funnel and oriented in that way because we needed a methodology from that. So what that says to me is there's a lot of different places this can go wrong. How do you get content consistency through the on-page content, social content, all the different things we're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the biggest pain point when we talk about content marketing right now is the fact that there's not really a corporate buy-in or a stakeholder buy-in to a full-fledged campaign. So regardless of companies, I still think certain departments live within their own little vacuums and silos. We always talk about this like less siloed approach, and we'll get there eventually once these barriers break down between marketing, content marketing, whatever type of marketing, et cetera. So really the consistency and getting a key message across the board is getting the buy-in from everyone. So starting with something as visceral as a good brand book, for instance. So from a creative perspective, here's what we're going to say, here's how we're going to say it, here's the fonts we're going to use, here's the, the color codes we're going to use. That's great for branded content. Now, in terms of more of that direct response content, like as it pertains to paid media initiatives like that, there's still an element that has to work into that, because the message that we're delivering from the branded side on site has to be promoted somehow. So whether it's organic social media posts, whether it's, native advertising, PPC, whatever it might be, all of that has to be consistent. And that starts at the top with everyone having buy-in on the campaign from the get-go.
Right. And that's definitely something where, call it a turf war. Not everyone wants to own a piece of a project. And so sometimes it can seem like overload, but we like to have every single subject matter area expert, content marketer, member of the creative team, a part of development of a calendar that helps decipher what is content going to look like on every single channel from that singular message or brand book, whatever that might be.
Yep.
And that's just how you have to do it to ensure that whatever message was created from the beginning is assimilated across all channels.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about there is thinking about in advance, planning for it, that kind of thing, and now getting buy-in across all those different channels. What does that look like? And that sounds really daunting. Because some people are saying, look, I don't know what I'm going to do in holiday or summer or whatever it might be, wherever they are on the calendar. How are they thinking that through, and how do you plan like that?
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of work and time, and it's definitely a oceanic type process. It ebbs and flows, because there's you definitely start with something such as an editorial calendar, which would start as a deliverable from a content team member who would decide, looking at inputs from every single channel's trends, past performance, what we should do for the upcoming quarter, year, whatever it might be.
Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Right,
like that.
right, exactly, for Talk Like a Pirate Day. And I actually think bringing that up is really intriguing, because when you think of what might be necessary for an organic social program to be successful, it's digging into some of these more surface level type holidays and trends and engaging with customers in real time. Whereas with a paid media campaign, we're not going to talk about Pirate Day. And if you are, whatever, you're probably Taco Bell. So there's, the content person has a large amount of responsibility to not only deliver something strategic and that's true to the brand, but that can be played with and manipulated for all different channels. So there's going to be times when content really drives the story and ensures that, whatever part of the buyer journey you're trying to communicate is very consistent throughout channels. And then there's going to be moments when the channels take control because there's something that's very specific. And while it still needs content, that's kind of where you do a Chinese fire drill, and the, channel team member becomes the driver in that. Yeah. So it's very difficult to always have a consistent process, because there's going to be moments when content needs to, create the conversation and really be super stringent in how it looks and feels. And then there's other times where channel team members really take over.
Yeah, I think just to play on that too, you hit on really three important things there. One is the process. So developing a strong process from the get-go really kind of measure or level sets where people are going to be come into play during the whole campaign. And then two is the adaptability. So yeah, National Talk Like a Pirate Day might be an awesome meme, organic social media post, but if the consumer journey calls for it, and if we have tertiary content built that supports this overarching, YAR message, there are elements of paid campaigns that can come into that, because that's what the user is going to be used to from a content perspective. Like if we've got 8 blog posts about, how to buy the best eye patch for National Talk Like a Pirate Day, or, something about canes or peg legs, like that is going to be something that is going to help seal the deal as it pertains to a consumer being used to that experience across the board. And then finally, it's a level of excitement that you have to instill when you're talking about the process with the teams, because far too often in marketing campaigns, I think when we start to just do the same thing day in, day out, it's like, all right, here's where organic comes in, here's where paid comes in, here's where XYZ comes in. And it's more of just like a boring process, or it just gets routine and sort of, not fundamental, but it just gets slow. So injecting some sort of excitement, whether that's convincing a different department that this was actually their idea somewhere along the way. It's, I think that has a lot to say about the level of effort and the level of excitement and the level of creativity that's going to go into certain parts of the funnel based on whatever department we're talking to.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it by having that process and having this thought through, it also gives you a lot of flexibility in the moment to say, yes, this is on strategy and yes, it fits here. And that's where then maybe you can be at that point efficient. So putting all that time and effort up front allows you to be a little faster and react to things faster maybe on the back end.
Well, that, and I mean, especially with content marketing, the whole industry and the whole term is still evolving. I mean, it's completely different 3 years ago than it is today. And 3 years from now, it's going to look completely different, I'm sure, with elements obviously being the same. But that is great in the fact that you can try whatever you want. Like if this doesn't work, well, screw it. We tried it at least, and we learned something based on that. So we're not going to do it that way again. But there might have been like 2 or 3 things that did work within the larger picture that we can replicate and then build off of. Yeah,
we just did an episode on optimization, and I think that's a methodology everyone has to think of. How do we keep getting better? How do we evolve? So having a plan that allows us to have then something to measure against, and are we getting better? So it's good to see that.
We took a Lyft over here, and we told the Lyft driver we were coming to record a podcast, and he asked us, what is the one secret about marketing that you don't want to tell anyone or that no one would ever know? It was so intriguing. And I said something a little off the cuff, but I was like that, nothing is wrong or everything's wrong, which essentially equates to, especially in content, you need to try a lot of different things to hit the mark. And, we're really this is not brain surgery. This is not, millions and millions of dollars. This is really small adjustments to our creative or our messaging to ensure that, we are talking to the consumer and evolving with them. And Will and I always joke, we'll read some ridiculous headline like, child turns orange after eating too many Cheetos, and say, that's content. Why? Because it captured our attention. And now we're intrigued and we're digging deeper. So, content.
I've seen fewer Cheetos around the office too. So apparently it really resonated with you guys.
We had to stop stalking them, I think.
Yeah. Now we're on Cheez-Its, but
no, don't tell.
That's really the thing, is that you need to be able to capture the attention of your audience, and that's what content is here to do. And so if you start to get stale and really bland in your process and not changing, then you're going to lose and not capture the attention of your audience.
One thing that I hear as a change as it relates to content marketing is the idea you've been talking about paid media as part of this. I mean, I feel like it was social, then it was content marketing felt like very much like a synonym for social. And what we're talking about here is all stages of the funnel. Paid is a component of that. So I'm assuming, and the heads are nodding here for those that can't see, that is paid media is part of this, right? I mean, paid media is content.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that rethinking the way that we have traditionally done paid media. And, if we're selling a product, there's a very clear ROI when you put dollars behind something. If you spend $1,000 on a CPC campaign, it's going to produce X amount of sales. But it becomes a little bit different in the fact that the journey has not become so linear this day and age, right? Like, I'm going to engage with a brand on Instagram and then potentially go to its site, but then not think about that brand for another 6 months until I get served a display ad. And then maybe I'll sign up for their email because finally, they have the shorts emblazoned with slices of pizza that I finally want to buy again. Not tip Chubby's. I own
Knew
those.
it.
But regardless, I mean, it's become this sort of process, and you don't exactly know where the consumer is going to hit you when. But paid media has to have such a play in that now, because the consumer doesn't just want to hear, buy, I was going to say Laramie cigarettes. We can edit that out. But buy this product now. It's more of like, how is this going to fit into my life? And I want to see that strategically placed because you've been tracking me this entire time. So a sponsored post 5 months after I engage with a brand is going to resonate more with me than an advertisement I see one day after not knowing who that brand is. So paid media, whether it's native advertising, social media, CPC, PPC, whatever it might be, it has to adapt with it too. So
you bring up tracking actually, and that's an interesting kind of part of this is how is tracking playing a role in all of this? I mean, moving through the funnel and connecting to different points of purchase. I mean, are you playing with attribution? Is this also part of the tool set for content marketing?
It's becoming more and more so, yeah, and especially with I know that we've been talking a lot about voice and voice marketing in recent podcasts and RDI marketing. The fact that, I mean, a good example is I used to share an office with a lot of women, and they were talking about, not feminine products, but, like hair care stuff and things of that nature. And then I looked at my Instagram and I was getting served Dove ads.
Oh.
It's like, the phones are listening.
Right.
So there's an element of that whole thing that comes into play. And yeah, it's a little creepy, but it's also very much a strategic play by these brands that understand that people that are consuming content, whether it's in their real lives or on Instagram or whatever social network they're on, are engaging with brands in certain ways. So they're going to be served these ads. So yeah, there's a level of attribution and tracking that has to come into your content marketing efforts, because as we said at the beginning, content's going to be removed from this situation. It's just going to be called marketing, which is going to touch every department again.
Yeah. So that plays into actually another interesting part of this and budgeting for all of this, because we're kind of saying it's everything, but then, so, how do we now, as we're consuming content marketing as it plays a role in every part of this, how do you budget for this as a methodology? If you're listening to this and you're going, oh man, this is what we need to be doing, editorial calendars, and it's part of paid, it's part of, how do I allocate for something like this?
I think something that Will and I have discussed a lot, especially as, the social department has moved in and out of the content department multiple times, thinking through how do we sell things as a full funnel campaign, which would encompass revenue for all teams. Mm-hmm. So how do we create an idea that stems from, a collaboration with the strategy team and inputs from the SEO team to solve a user problem, and then create a content piece, and then paid social and social media content pieces to support that. And then how do we maybe interact with the brand's PR team to get some sort of an activation involved? And then we would be able to pitch something comprehensively instead of really viewing this as, okay, how do we take this one content piece and then promote it using social budget, et cetera, et cetera. It just becomes very, very complicated. And
right.
So thinking of something from, full funnel start to finish, instead of really having this, I hate to say, but even retainer mindset, thinking of things in that way has really helped us be able to effectively sell through these solutions.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting what you're saying there, because, on the retainer mindset is, hey, can you do this today? Hey, can you do this tomorrow? Hey, and it is a little ad hoc, and it's nice to have a plan to kind of look back on and say, is it on strategy, or was this what we're thinking about doing? But in this case, you're saying, look, starting with the problem, here's the way we're going to solve that problem. And it is a full funnel solution that we're offering here to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the best examples are some of these assisted selling tools we've created, like, the ASICS Pronation Guide or the Voki Wedge Selector. That was something that started with a consumer problem. We were able to identify that, create a content piece that solved that problem, create promotional assets for that, and it's generating revenue every single day for these brands. So it's definitely, an easy way for us to think through how do we create a content piece and make sure it's effective.
And it lives on.
Right.
In that case.
Exactly. So many things are just a flash in the pan. I mean, blog posts, we spend all this time creating a blog post, and then we publish it, promote it for 1 month because, we had that 1 month to do it, and then we move on. And, there's so many content pieces we create that can have legs and evolve, and content repurposing is huge in the industry right now.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things we can do.
Yeah, I think Mia's got a really good point there, is the content repurposing, but also it comes back to that at the same token, like you were talking about taking the Lyft over here, which I thought was an Uber. Anyway, the guy also asked us, like Mia had her great answer for what's the secret to marketing, and, what's one thing you wish people would know. And the big picture too is, like I said at the beginning, that corporate buy-in, that stakeholder buy-in. So it's that level of education that companies need to implement as well. So yeah, we can talk about marketing budgets as it pertains to how much spend we're going to put behind something, how much production spend we're going to put behind, the creation, et cetera. But there's also the level of education, like how much are you willing to invest in your employees? How much are you willing to invest in their learnings, going to conferences? I mean, content marketing world, I think, is $2,500 to go to. So these things aren't anything to, bite your thumb at. They're expensive. There's plane tickets, there's hotel rooms. So when you talk about content marketing budgets, you have to understand first, like, what are your goals? Like, who is going to be the stakeholders? Who are going to be the people that need to buy into this program from the get-go? And if it involves every department, then we need to invest in every department.
Mm-hmm.
So their education and their level of understanding of content and content marketing and why it's important to repurpose a blog and why it's important that things need to live on versus just promoting things for 1 month because it's part of a retainer, why that's important.
Yeah.
And the way to teach them that is through, Linda classes, through through conferences, through guest speakers,
listening to podcasts,
listening to awesome podcasts where you only get this proprietary information from the marketing remix, things of that nature. But I mean, it's true when it comes down to it, you really need to invest in that level of education. And a lot of companies are getting that. A lot of them are very much more, progressive. You look at your like Wendy's and Taco Bells that are, super sardonic across all their marketing efforts, but they found out that worked, but it still started with an initial risk. So, companies will adapt. It's just win.
Yeah. So, what do we need to adapt to? I mean, where's content marketing going over the next 1 to 3 years? I mean, 3 years, I think it might as well be 20 years from now.
Right.
But, where do you think it's headed?
Well, I'll be replaced by robots in 3 years. So.
Right. AI. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. That's just a buzzword I love. I think that content marketing, I mean, Will's talked a lot about dropping the content piece and having it just be marketing, but I really think that it's going to come full circle and we're going to really start to be thinking more about traditional avenues of marketing as far as content is concerned. I mean, activations are huge and we've talked about that even maybe being on the outs because events and activations have become so popular, but content becoming interactive billboards or something with, streaming on Netflix. I think there's going to be a lot more traditional forms of advertising that people look to content marketers to create because we've had so much experience in storytelling and capturing a very niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like the reverse of ad fatigue.
Right.
We're going to get to a point where there's going to be too much sarcasm on social media where it's just like, what, just give me the damn message already.
Right.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
here's what I want to hear. And I think that's going to involve people not just thinking about bigger things, but thinking better about their marketing efforts and being more purposeful. Like Mia was saying, like storytelling is a huge thing. I've been reading all these studies about like neurologists and neuroscientists looking into how our brains work and how we respond to advertising and how we're more inclined to connect with a brand when they're telling us a story about how it relates to our life, not just buy this, buy that, but, this car, everyone that got in this horrific accident lived, and the car's crumpled in the background, but that's something that relates to us because that's a story that we see unfolding in our lives,
right,
especially living in California. So, it is more of that level of investment, what people are willing to put into it. And then thinking about the tradition and where we've come from, because I think, full circle, that is going to be a big thing. And then just thinking better, thinking smarter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to chew on here, and it's good to help clarify what this all is and where it's headed. So really appreciate you guys joining us for the show. For our listeners, do join and take a look at our blog post. We will have that bit of content for us on show notes and things like that. So thanks for everyone joining us. Will, Mia, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.